Look at your neighbor and tell your neighbor, I don't condemn you. I don't judge you. I'm going to preach Christ to you. Because you can't evangelize and antagonize at the same time. You cannot insult and inspire the same people that you insult. I thank God that Jesus went to Samaria with a woman who had some sexual identity problems and didn't preach condemnation. He just preached Christ.
What's up, YouTube family? Welcome back to my space. This is Theyre. Guys, thank you so much for tuning to watch this video. Kindly do consider subscribing to my channel. So guys, on today's video, we want to talk about Dr. Smith. Dr. Smith had a very powerful sermon a few years ago where he spoke about the judgment of Christians in the church against homosexuals, and he rather preached on how Christians should handle homosexuals and people who are struggling with their sexual orientation. So guys, this video will be very informative, and I hope you enjoy it. I hope we get to learn from this. I will cut this video. Once it's done, then come back and do a critical analysis of the same. And before we do that, I just want to do a small background check. From my research, Dr. Smith is a well-known pastor and a speaker who has addressed various social and theological issues, including homosexuality. In some of his sermons and public statements, he has emphasized the need of the church to show compassion, love, and understanding towards the LGBTQ community. In one notable instance, he pointed out the hypocrisy of some Christians who condemn homosexuality while ignoring other sins or issues within the church. He has argued for a more compassionate approach, arguing believers to avoid judgment and instead focus on living out Christian values of love and acceptance. Dr. Smith's stance has sometimes sparked controversy as it challenges more traditional views on homosexuality within the Christian community. However, his approach also resonates with those who seek a more inclusive and loving interpretation of Christian teachings. So guys, I want us to watch this video. Then once it's done, we'll come back and do a critical analysis of the same. Let's watch this, guys.
I got to deal with this. Because I think, Bishop, it presents a quandary for us. I got to go here because it presents a theological challenge. Philip is commissioned to minister to a group that the church folk felt were nasty. Philip was commissioned to minister to a group who were hated because of how they were born. Jesus in John 4 ministers to a woman who had sexual identity issues. Samaria is paganistic, pantheistic, and polytheistic, and the Holy Ghost says to Philip, don't go to Jerusalem. We don't need you at the convocation. Okay, y'all quiet. Let me put a quarter meter park there. The greatest missionary field for the African American church in the 21st century is going to be the people that we've oppressed within our own context. Pastor Jenkins, all my life, I've been taught that because I was a heterosexual, that they gave me a sense of sociological exclusivity and elitism. Because I believe that marriage is between a man and woman. I believe that woman is the best thing God ever made. I believe if God made anything better than woman, he kept it for himself. Y'all not gonna help me preach. That's what I believe with my heart. And part of my challenge, Bishop, came up recently when I found out, co-pastor, that my youth advisor growing up taught us how to read the Word of God, play, became a pastor, could preach and sing like nobody you've ever heard. Became a pastor, moved to Atlanta, but never found a successful relationship. End up getting on drugs, struggling with his own orientation, and now is living back with his mom. And everybody castigated him. And me, I pointed the bony finger of scrutiny and accusation at him. Until I found out when he was born 61 years ago, he was born as something called an hermaphrodite. Meaning he had both sexual organs. So his dad decided that he didn't want a girl. He wanted a boy. They performed the surgery on him when he was weeks old and never told him about how he was born. But all my life, because I love women and growing up in the South, because I'm heterosexual, I'm better than somebody who may struggle with their identity. And then all my life, I was taught if somebody struggles with that, just tell them you must be born again. And you weren't born like that. Well, he was born with both organs. So how do I tell him how he was born when it looks like God didn't know what he wanted him to be? Was he born demonic? Was he cursed? Does he have a chromosomal abnormality? And God said to me, here's the problem. You guys in the church can be so hypocritical. He said, in the African American church, you really got to be careful. I said, what do you mean? He said, because you are guilty of condemning the Supreme Court system and preaching against something. But if you look at half of our choirs, and a great number of our artists that we call abominations and we call demons, we demonize and dehumanize the same people that we use, and we don't say nothing about the gay choir director because he's good for business. As long as the choir sound good, I ain't saying nothing about his sexuality. We have done what the slave master did to us: dehumanize us, degrade us, demonize us, but then use them for our advantage. It's hypocritical to talk about the Supreme Court and calling them Sodom and Gomorrah, which is not what it's all about. But if that's the case, half our churches have been Sodom and Gomorrah for 100 years. He told me, boy, you got to re-examine yourself. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, on one hand, you quote homosexuality is an abomination from Leviticus. But you say that right after you ate some shrimp, some catfish, and some lobster. You quote Leviticus while you're wearing a wool blend suit. It's also in Leviticus that you shouldn't wear mixed linens. It's in Leviticus that if your wife is on her cycle, that you shouldn't go in the same house with her or even sleep on the same bed with her. That's in Leviticus too. Look at your neighbor and tell your neighbor, I don't condemn you, I don't judge you, I'm gonna preach Christ to you. Because you can't evangelize and antagonize at the same time. You cannot insult and inspire the same people that you insult. I thank God that Jesus went to Samaria with a woman who had some sexual identity problems and didn't preach condemnation. He just preached Christ. And our greatest missionary opportunity is going to be finding those who may be struggling to say, I'm not better than you, but the same grace that saved me, the same blood that let me come is the same blood that you're going to need. What are we going to do about the people who've been born this way? who've been struggling with something? What about the people that we think are nasty? These folks are abomination, they're nasty. Tell you what you do then. Go find every song that's been written by a gay person for the last 100 years and don't sing it in church. Let's see how many songs you can minister on that Sunday. Bishop, don't tell me what the Bible says about homosexuals and you change wives like we change underwear. Sit yourself, your hypocritical self down. We all got to look at ourselves. We all need Jesus. I'm not condoning anything. I'm just saying we got to stop preaching judgment and condemnation and preach Jesus. Jesus can change. The gospel can change lives. Watch the language you use. Had a 13-year-old boy in my church who's suicidal because his dad been trying to beat a demon out of him. So you can have a wife and 4 girlfriends, that's okay. You ain't got no demon. But somebody who may be struggling with their own identity, they have a demon. Listen, it's not demons, it's we're all human beings. And until we validate the humanity of somebody who's different from us, we'll never win a world for Jesus Christ. Y'all ain't shouting like you was when the choir was just singing. Ain't nobody dancing now. Somebody holler, preach Jesus. How to reach the masses, men of every birth. For an answer, Jesus gave the key. And if I be lifted up, woo, from the earth. Philip didn't go to Samaria and call the folk nasty because y'all were born nasty. He went down there and he preached Jesus. We got to do it because it's hard for us to say what Jesus said about homosexuality because he didn't say nothing about homosexuality. Preach the whole counsel, but don't put something on Jesus that he didn't do. I believe marriage is between a man and a woman. I believe that's the order of God. But I also believe that it's through love and kindness that we're able to draw people and not judgment or a hierarchy like I'm better than anybody else.
Family, we have just heard that powerful sermon from Dr. Smith. Dr. Smith is trying to tell the church and the Christian community that it is not okay to be hypocritical in some ways because he believes that there are many sins outside there, and most of us are victims of certain things that we're doing wrongly. He instead urges Christians to be inclusive in trying to include homosexuals and any other people who do not know their sexual orientation, who are struggling with their sexual orientation, to come together and preach Jesus to them. He says they should not be judged, they should not be condemned, but rather speak Christ to their lives. Then that way you shall have solved the issue. When you speak Christ to their lives, you shall have given the solution that indeed God made man and woman, after preaching to them Christ, but not condemning them or rather judging them. So I wanted to tackle this sermon from the very start, from where this video starts from. He says that Philip was commissioned to minister to a group that the church felt were nasty, a group that was hated because of how they were born. You know, Philip was commissioned to minister to them, regardless of their filth in the Christian realm, you know, regardless of their dirt. Philip had to address them. And he proceeds to say that Jesus in John 4 ministered to a woman with sexual identity issues. That shows you, as a modern day Christian, the best thing you can do is accommodate all these people and preach Christ into their lives, preach Jesus into their lives, but not judge them. He says, I believe in marriage of man and a woman. Woman is the best thing God has ever made. And if there is any other thing that is better than a woman, then probably God hid them from us. He says that jokingly. Yeah? Then he says he had this pastor, his youth advisor, you know, growing up, taught him a lot and later became a pastor. This is a story that he was giving his congregants about his youth pastor who taught him a lot of things, taught him how to pray, and he later became a pastor. He was their youth advisor, then later became a pastor and found and never found a successful relationship. He ended up getting on drugs and struggled with his own orientation. And now he's been living with his mom and everybody has judged him, you know. Then he says later they found out that he had both sexual organs. They did a surgery while he was weeks old and he was never told. He was taught if the pastor now says that he was taught, if somebody is struggling with their identity, tell them you must be born again and you were not born like that. You know, then he gives this example and say, what about the youth advisor who was born with 2 sexual organs, but his dad did not want for his child to be a lady, but rather be a man. So what they did is do a surgery on him. Then this guy has been struggling for years growing up. He got into drug addiction. He never knew what was wrong with him. He was struggling with his sexual orientation. But the parents decided to cut off one part through a surgery while he was weeks old. He never knew what was wrong with him. So he says that there is no way. This is now Dr. Smith. He says that they were taught that anyone who's struggling with their identity should be told that they must be born again, and they were not born like that. And he says, what about his youth advisor who was born like that? What went wrong? Is it demonic? Is it that he was cursed or had chromosome abnormalities? He says, the problem is you guys in the church can be so hypocritical. He says, we should accommodate people, talk to them and preach Christ. We should stop being hypocritical. And you notice that this topic is very, very sensitive because the traditional church, the traditional doctrines do not want to associate with anyone who struggles with their sexual orientation. When people had this pastor try and speak on behalf of homosexuals, on behalf of the church having to support them, on behalf of the church having to accommodate them and teach them. You know, it just gave this pastor a lot of backlash at some point, but indeed he was saying the truth. The church has a lot of hypocrisy sometimes. If you look at our choirs, he says, and a great number of our artists are the same, but as long as the choir is good, we say nothing about their sexuality. Half of our churches have been Sodom and Gomorrah for hundreds of years. You know, because people are preaching bread and they are drinking wine, you know. For as long as you can do your other thing on the side and the church doesn't notice, then it's okay. But when somebody comes openly and says what they're struggling with, they're now being judged. You know, that's a lot of hypocrisy in the church. According to Dr. Smith, we pick and choose the scriptures that we want to use rather than look at our own lives. Many times people use the scriptures, you know, somebody will say a book in Leviticus, just like he gave an example, says no to homosexuality. He also says that the same book talks about many other different laws. He gave even an example that if women are in a cycle, you should not live with them in the same roof. You should not even dare to sleep with them on the same bed. But you notice different people will quote different scriptures in timings that they do make sense. You know, he says that we pick and choose the scriptures that we want to use rather than look at our own lives. If God wanted to judge America, he won't need the Supreme Court system, but rather judge you individually, judge you with your deeds. You know, I don't judge you, but I'm going to preach Christ to you. Yo, that is so, so deep. Not judging people, but rather preaching Christ to their lives. Accepting people and letting them know that they are safe in the church. Then preach Christ to them. Just help them get out of the addiction they have. Help them get out of the abnormality that somebody can say they have. Then that way you shall have served the purpose of Jesus in their lives. You know? Then he proceeds to say, you can't evangelize and antagonize at the same time. You can't insult and inspire the same person you are insulting in the same timing, you know? He also says, Jesus didn't preach condemnation, but he preached Christ to the woman who was struggling with sexual orientation issues, or other addiction issues. Then he finishes this sermon by asking us a question. What are you going to do? What are you going to do to the people who are born this way? If it were you, what were you going to do in the church? Would you take them for surgery? Would you teach them Jesus' teachings? Would you judge them? Would you condemn them? Let me know in the comment section down below. I found this sermon to be so, so powerful. And I thought that I should share it with you guys so that you all may let me know in the comment section down below what you think about this video. And if you learned something, let me know also on the comment section, guys. Thank you so, so much for watching this video. Kindly do consider subscribing to my channel for amazing, amazing black stories and amazing black history of black folks in America. And guys, thank you so, so much for the support so far. Thank you for sharing my work. Thank you for sharing my content. I do not take it for granted, man. The love has been overwhelming. Right now, we are on the road to 20K subscribers, and we cannot do it. I cannot do it alone. I need your support, guys, for us to beat these numbers. And when the numbers grow, then the gospel is reaching out to more and more people. In this case, the gospel is black history, black stories, and it could be in Africa, in the US, and anywhere where black folks are in. Guys, thank you so, so much, and see you all in my next video. Goodbye for now. And guys, before you forget, like the video. It helps in recommendations too. And you can also support me through super thanks down below. See you guys in my next video. Goodbye.